About the government's EU Withdrawal Bill, because it's, as you know, the flagship piece of legislation for Brexit. But right now, Theresa May faces the threat of defeat for the first time in this process, really, as Conservative backbench rebels, so her own side, are threatening to vote against it. The rebels are led by former Attorney General, so formerly the top lawyer in the country, Dominic Grieve. He wants a cast-iron legal guarantee that MPs will be able to vote on any Brexit deal before it's finalised. Let's talk to Norman, who's at Westminster. So the nub of this issue, in plain English, Norman, is what?
The nub of this issue is who is running Brexit. Is it the Prime Minister or is it Parliament? The government's view is that Mrs May has to have a free hand to negotiate the sort of deal she wants, but she says MPs will still get a vote, albeit it will be after she has signed the deal. Not good enough, say MPs, for a number of reasons. One, because they say they want an absolute guarantee there's going to be a vote written in law. It isn't at the moment. They also want stripped out powers the government has kept to itself to implement bits and pieces of the withdrawal agreement without consulting Parliament, and they want the power to shape the sort of Brexit deal Mrs May is going to do, because at the moment it's a sort of take it or leave it vote. If you don't like the deal Mrs May's done, then you can vote against it, but we'll just leave the EU anyway. And for the first time, really, Mrs May could be facing potential defeat, and much of that may hinge on one man. He's with me now. He is the former Attorney General, Dominic Grieve, who's regarded almost as the linchpin of this revolt, and there's been a huge amount of pressure, I suppose, but there's also been some movement from the government. They're talking to people like you, trying to reassure people like you. So will you now back off and ensure that this goes through as the government want?
It's important to understand that the difference between myself and the government on this issue is at times quite difficult to understand and follow. The government's issued a written ministerial statement today which sets out a process after we reach agreement, probably in the summer or early autumn of next year, which is one with which I entirely agree. It says there will be a vote, resolution of both houses of Parliament to approve the treaty. There will then be legislation to implement the treaty and put it into our law, using doubtless statutory instruments to do it, prior to our leaving on the 29th of March. The question which is at the heart of this evening's debate and my amendment is, in those circumstances, why is Clause 9 in the current bill? Because Clause 9, as it stands, gives the government the power to ignore that process and try to do everything by statutory instrument.
Well,
I don't believe the government wants to do that, but it then becomes very hard to understand why the government can't simply accept my amendment, which says that the powers in Clause 9 can't be used until Parliament has determined these issues at the end of next year.
So given all that, are you going to vote against the government tonight? And is the government facing likely defeat as a result of it?
The sensible thing would be for the government to accept my amendment. If they do that, and if they have some unhappiness on its details, then the government can come back to the Commons at report and alter it, and indeed I would be supportive of that. The difficulty is that I've been pressing the government for 4 weeks, saying, here's my amendment, I think it makes complete sense. If you think there's another way of approaching this, come up with an amendment of your own. And until Friday afternoon, last Friday, I thought they were going to do that. They didn't. Then, of course, on Monday, the balloon goes up, everybody starts getting hysterical, people say it's sabotaging Brexit, battle lines are drawn. None of this is in any way necessary. The government should show greater flexibility in the way it approaches MPs raising legitimate issues, and I'm quite sure that if we do that, we should be able to resolve this without my having to rebel against the government, something which on an issue of national importance I have never done in the course of my career.
Dominic Grieve, thanks very much. Vic, it is going to be I think it's going to be a really close vote tonight, and you get a sense that for the government this is about more than Brexit. They see it as about Mrs May's authority, so they are really throwing everything at it.